Temptation Trials Rebellion, Men's Prologue, Audiobook Bonus Scene, written by author B. Truly, narrated by William A. Cline. Most crimes, such as robbery or battery, were deemed punishable by capital punishment. The norm for trials became by judge and officials versus a jury of peers. Those mandates had terrified society into submission. Technically, there were still 50 states. A vast majority of their land worldwide was just not inhabited, a wasteland. The regime focused on getting states which suffered the least amount of destruction back in order. Las Vegas was the capital of the United Origins. Washington, D.C. had been demolished. The world dictator, Lutheran Eminence, determined all decisions. He did have a legislative board, but they backed him 100%. Under Lutheran's lead were ambassadors, one for each of the remaining continents, followed by governors. The governor's jurisdiction didn't just govern one state, though. It reigned over 2 or more. The war caused the loss of over 40% of the population. The vastest difference was that there were no longer 7 continents. Only 3 remained. World War III caused more devastation than all prior wars put together. The death toll was unprecedented. Cade. Finally, her eyes fluttered open. Relief filled Cade because she'd been out of it for a while. He still couldn't believe he'd gone to a party, and it got raved. He wasn't surprised the shindig had gotten busted. In the New World Order, all parties were illegal. Painting the town red was not Cade's usual scene. He had only snuck into less than a handful of parties over the years. Cade didn't regret going, or he wouldn't have met the gorgeous girl in front of him. But he hated they'd gotten caught. When the enforcers kicked the door in, the girl Cade had been crushing on wasn't going to make it. In his effort to rescue her, he'd gotten tasered and thrown in the slammer too. Now they were up Schitt's Creek. "Phew, you're awake. I was beginning to worry," Cade told the woman. Slowly, she faced Cade. Her uniquely colored eyes dilated. He was sitting close to her while she lay passed out on the bench. Being tasered twice was the reason she was out cold for so long. Her long, wavy black hair was tousled, but it was an attractive look on her. The woman closed her eyes for a spell. Maybe she was trying to figure out where she was. Suddenly, she bolted upright. Tugging at their confined wrists, she hissed. "Whoa, careful. We're connected," Cade informed her. The woman's eyes widened as she glanced down. Cade repositioned himself more comfortably. There was only so much give and take with them being handcuffed together. He had high hopes that the opposition, the co-op that he was a member of, would come through. But it would probably take them a while to come up with a game plan. Why are we handcuffed?" the lady asked with creases lining her forehead. Cade laughed without humor. "The enforcer that I was wrestling with in an attempt to rescue you thought it was fitting." "Huh?" "A prank on his part," he made the comment. "Since you want to be a hero, then I'll arrange for you to stay together. Permanently," Cade explained. "What an asshole," she exclaimed. "How long have I been passed out?" "Not sure. More than an hour. I would have liked to get my hands on the punk that tasered you. The second voltage was not necessary. It's why you were out for so long." The lady shivered, then she raked a hand through her thick black waves. "Don't worry. You look great." Her eyes reached the heavens. Being in close proximity, it was high time he formally introduced himself. "I'm Kincaid, by the way, but everyone just calls me Cade." "My name is Callie." "Nice to meet you." "You too, Cade." She flinched. "My mom is going to kill me." "Don't worry. My crew will intervene." "What do you mean?" Cade scooted closer. "The organization I'm with should be here shortly. We all have locators." Her brow knitted. "So you get into this kind of trouble often?" He chuckled. She was adorable. "Nah, this is my first offense, but this co-op has its perks." Cade shouldn't be telling her this, but he decided to just go with it. Several members had been captured. He seriously doubted the op would hang them out to dry, so Callie was bound to find out anyway. After checking to make sure the prick officer wasn't nearby, he whispered, "The locator signal will not only let them know where I am, but I'll be able to hear them." "How?" "Even lower," he replied. "The technology we have is advanced. The device is located by my eardrum. They can use it to transmit my location, and it allows me to hear radio communication. I can also talk to them once the wave signal is activated." She arched her eyebrows. "Okay. Even if you guys break us out, it doesn't really alleviate the problem. We're in the system. They'll confiscate us, then we'll be in more trouble than we already are. My crew will crash their system with a virus that will destroy all camera footage recorded within the last few days. The good thing is, they threw us straight in here. They haven't even processed this cell block yet, which makes things easier." "So they haven't fingerprinted anyone in this section?" Cade shook his head. "Plus, the virus will wipe out their files too. Any inmate in this compound who manages to flee, it will be their lucky day." "This sounds like cryptic op stuff. Why are you telling me this?" He shrugged. "I have good instincts. I seriously doubt you're going to blab to the guards." "No, I'm not a tattletale." Cade's lips curved forward, and Callie grinned also. "Has your corporation communicated with you?" "Not yet." Her smile flipped upside down, and he wanted to reassure her. "In a situation like this, they have to rescue us. It's code. There are too many members from our organization here. Tobias is the best IT hacker in the city of San Diego. He built the virus crasher. Tobias and I are good bros. He'll come through. He's the guy that was dancing with your friend." "So they made it out?" "As far as I know. They were headed out the back way when I returned for you." She sighed. "Thank you for trying to rescue me." Cade hadn't known Callie long, but from the moment he had seen her dance, there was something between them. There was no way that he wouldn't have attempted to help her. "You're welcome," he replied. "What about these cuffs?" "Let's get out of here first, then we'll worry about that." "I'm going to stand up." At least the chain between their metal cuffs was longer than regular handcuffs, which allowed for some movement. Callie stood, walking over to the bars. Cade had no choice but to follow her. "This place is packed," she said. Cade spotted Raffi nearby. "Raphael, a member of my crew, is 2 cells down." "Static," Raffi relayed to him. Code could hear the low buzz in his ear canal, too. A welcomed relief. "Does Raphael have a locator also?" "Yes, every member does." "Is static a code word?" "It means the communication signal is being activated. I can hear it now." "So what is supposed to happen exactly?" Spotting the lawman, Cade inclined his head toward him, giving Callie a heads up. She turned away quickly. "That's the prick who handcuffed us." Once the enforcer made his rounds, he spoke in a low voice. "I'll explain later. We probably shouldn't talk in detail. I'll let you know more as soon as I have a clear signal." Earlier, Cade was skeptical if the op would come through. Now that the communication signal had turned on, he could relax a little. He was certain a rescue mission was en route. Wanting to learn more about Callie, Cade said, "I haven't seen you at any local scenes." "That was my first and my last party. Look what happened when I finally broke down and went." Callie's entire body was tense. Cade wanted to erase her worries. "Well, I'm glad you came. I couldn't have gotten a better cellmate." Callie's lips spread across her face. "Do you joke about everything?" "Just trying to lighten the mood. You seem terrified." "Aren't you? One violation makes your life a living hell. I won't be allowed to attend school this fall semester." "My compadres will get us out of this." Cade was enjoying their conversation. Jail wasn't the most romantic place to flirt, but being so close to her sprang his body to life. Cade had never been this attracted to anyone before. Callie was an extremely beautiful woman, and he couldn't help ogling her. Callie looked down. "What's up?" Cade couldn't quite pinpoint the color of her eyes. "Your eye color is very unique." Her cheeks flushed. I'm not sure of the color. I inherited them from my father. My driver's license says they're amber. The shade is not just gold. Brown and red are swirled within the amber, like a copper penny. They're gorgeous. She blushed more. Callie was shyer than he was. Maybe he needed to zip it. He didn't want to make her uncomfortable. Thank you. I like the color of your eyes also. Much appreciated, he responded, now feeling like his cheeks were on fire. Cade's eyes were the color of platinum. He got complimented about them often, but Callie's compliment caused his stomach to turn a backflip. Have you had an update from your team? No, not yet. It shouldn't be much longer. Callie frowned. To keep her mind from wandering to the worst, Cade continued to make idle chit-chat. It had been a while since the locator's line was open for communication. Doubt that the buzzing from the locator device had been a fluke was starting to set in. Maybe the opposition wouldn't come to the rescue, wanting to teach them a lesson. Cade pushed his worry to the rear of his mind. He must remain positive that the op would come through, or they'd be in a world of trouble. A while later, the sound of their cells' locks clicking was music to Cade's ears. The cavalry had arrived. Realizing that the door's opening meant freedom, everyone began to scatter. Cade rushed Callie out of their cell. Raffi was closer to the enforcer standing guard. He pounced on him, swiping the enforcer's legs from underneath him. Cade kicked the lawman in the face next, knocking him out cold. Raffi retrieved his gun off the ground. Glancing at his wrist, Cade needed to deal with another problem. They had to get the chain from the cuff broken so they could run better. "Raffi, can you take care of this?" asked Cade, raising their joined handcuff chain. Raffi aimed the gun at them. Cade scooted to the side, putting as much space between them as possible, extending the chain. Callie nibbled on her bottom lip. "Wait, I don't think this is a good idea." "Raphael is a good shot. Just turn your head to the side. We don't have much time, and it will be easier to run not being joined at the wrists." "Here goes," Raffi warned them. "Don't move!" Callie closed her eyes. A good marksman, Raffi hit the chain dead on. Now their hands were free. The compound's lights went out, and the inmates that were not part of the opposition whimpered and gasped. They didn't have a clue what was going on. Mike, an op member, ran past them, heading for the far wall. He wore a black mask covering his entire face, except his eyes. He looked like he was robbing the joint. Moments passed, and then the backup lights came on. The lighting was dim, but Cade could see better. Mike placed 3 blocks onto the far wall so he could blow it out. Knowing what was to occur, Cade pushed Callie against the wall, shielding her body with his. "Everyone stand clear!" Mike shouted. A loud explosion detonated from the bombs on the wall. Chunks of debris splayed everywhere. Inmates screamed, and some of them dove to the floor. Mike didn't waste time. After the wall was blown, he sprinted through it. Gunshots, accompanied by yelling, came from the main building where Cade's other team members were. Another member burst quickly through the metal door from the compound. "Move out!" Cade recognized Randolph's voice. He was geared in all black, too. Raffi and a ton more people didn't hesitate escaping. The gaping, jagged hole from the explosion had smoke spewing from it. Cade pulled Callie in the direction of the opening. Some inmates stood frozen in place, or stayed on the ground, shell-shocked. "Get your asses out of there!" Tobias shouted through the locator. "I'll guide you through the team's cameras." "Come on, everyone!" Cade encouraged the crowd. He didn't wait for their response, hauling ass out of the smoking hole. Hopefully the other inmates made a run for it. This was their chance. They had nothing to lose. The only crime they'd supposedly committed was having fun at a party. "Run straight for now. You'll make a right soon," Tobias relayed. "The getaway vehicles are 3 miles due west," Eric spoke up through their devices. The area was infiltrated by darkness. The towering pole lighting didn't provide much light. Callie's eyes were like a deer in headlights, but she was a fast runner and kept pace with Cade. "There are escape vehicles waiting. We have to make it through this valley first," Cade told Callie. "Okay," she replied in a shaky voice. "You trust me?" "Yes," Callie said with certainty. Cade held her hand in a death grip as they sprinted toward the valley ahead. Uneven, knee-high grass layered the terrain. In the dim light, it was difficult to make out their surroundings. Glancing over his shoulder, Cade saw other members of the opposition, along with a slew of inmates. "It's a straight shot from where you guys are now," Tobias told them. "Push it!" "We're almost there," Cade relayed to Callie. Cade should have known this wouldn't be easy. All hell broke loose as gunfire erupted. A dude to his side tumbled over, getting shot in his back. Enforcement was on their trail. More blasts sounded from their pursuers. Cade pulled them behind a large tree, and they crouched down. As Cade's eyes tried to focus in the darkness, he scanned the perimeter. Firing came from every direction. Maybe some of Cade's crew was retaliating. He wished he could help. Inmates scurried in an attempt to escape from the bullets. In the distance, Cade spotted an enforcer lurking in the tall weeds. He aimed his gun, hitting someone. The law had no mercy. They could taser them, but instead they chose to gun them down. Turning toward Callie, Cade pointed in the distance. "Stay here," he whispered. "I'm going to take him out." She grabbed his arm. "Let's just make a run for it." "No, this area is open. There's too much of a risk of him shooting one of us." He double-checked his surroundings. "If this doesn't go as planned, I want you to run to the pickup point. We're only about a mile out from the rescue vehicles." "But—" "No buts. Just keep straight and stay low." "Be careful." He nodded, then crept toward the lawman. Gunshots were now few and far between. Sneaking up behind him, Cade kicked the weapon from his hand. The enforcer tackled him, and they fumbled to the ground. Getting the upper hand, the enforcer climbed on top of Cade. He retaliated, kicking him in the groin. Cade tried to grab the pistol he'd seen, only the enforcer was faster. He retrieved the gun before Cade could, aiming it point blank. "On your feet, now!" the enforcer commanded. Cade sighed, rising to his feet. "Don't you dare move, or I swear I'll blast your ass! Turn around and place your hands behind your head." Slowly, Cade did as he was told. A moment later, he heard a grunt, followed by a thud. Whipping around, he saw the enforcer on the ground, knocked out. Callie stood with a rock in her possession. She had hit him over the head. Cade could only stare at her, speechless. She impressed the hell out of him. "I knew I liked you," he finally said. "That was dangerous, but brave." Callie's brow knitted. Bending, Cade picked up his weapon. "He's not dead. His chest is moving," Cade relayed, wondering if that's why she looked concerned. "We gotta go, though." She sighed. Cade took her hand, and they sprinted through the weeds. Cade saw some of his team as they ran. Not long after, many escaped vehicles appeared in the distance. Good thinking on their part to provide extra cars for other inmates who'd made a run for it. Escapees were diving into them. Cade led them to an SUV. Raffi had left the door open. They jumped into the back seat. One of the vehicles took off like a bat out of hell. Enforcers were still in pursuit, running in their direction. Winston, from the op, dove inside, and then Eric burned rubber. Their heads jerked backwards. Gunfire ignited from behind them, shattering the windshield. A woman next to Cade screamed. Callie ducked, whimpering. He held her close to him. More shots followed as they sped up. "Everyone stay down!" Eric ordered. He swerved around the corner so fast the momentum slung them together. Raffi was sitting in the passenger seat. His head slammed into the window. "Shit, Eric!" "Sorry, man, you want a knot on your head or your head blown off?" Eric replied. Raffi remained silent. After a few more turns, Eric asked, "Is anyone hit?" No one was, but Cade hated to think about if anyone had lost their lives. Callie looked through the busted rear windshield. The air rushing in made her shiver. Cade pulled her tighter into his embrace. She didn't seem to mind. Wanting to know how she was holding up, he asked, "Hey, you okay?" "I'm shaking. Relieved we made it." This was shit that happened in books. Callie had a right to be flustered. Every few minutes her head darted from side to side. Now that it seemed like everything would be okay, Cade decided to tease Callie. distract her from her worries. Relax, we're in the clear. Easy for you to say. The way you fought that enforcer, you've had some sort of training. Yeah, some. I've never been in a combat situation, though. He remembered how she admirably came to his rescue. He only hated that she put herself at risk for him. You didn't listen to me anyway. I'm glad that you weren't hurt. Callie shrugged. Looked like you needed a hand. Thank you for helping. You're welcome. You came back for me, remember? So now we're even. Rafi chuckled. That's a damn shame a woman had to help you, Cade. Bite me. Cade's lips curled upward, and Eric laughed. We're almost at our destination, Cade told her, eyeing the chick and dude that were in the truck with them. He had already spilled the beans to Callie. Better to not let anyone else know more than they had to. I'll fill you in and answer any questions you have once we arrive. Callie nodded, and then she leaned her head against his shoulder, and Cade was in hog heaven. Cade woke up in a cold sweat, remembering his dream. The dream was about the night he had met Callie, almost a year ago. That night had been a nightmare, but also one of the best of his life. Callie turned out to be the love of his life. Cade wouldn't go back in time and change meeting her. After that night, they became fast friends. Soon, an eternal love grew between them. Cade's only fear was when they turned 21, they'd be forced into an arranged marriage with someone else. There was no getting around the regime's strict mandate of arranged marriages, and the world dictator never let any couple that were already together get married. His specialty was breaking hearts because he felt that he was the ultimate matchmaker. It boiled down to control, and Lutheran eminence, the world dictator, wanted the ultimate power. Cade had been shocked speechless when Callie had brought up them entering the temptation trials. The government-sponsored reality show where couples who wanted to stay together had to prove their love to the world. So far, no couple had yet to survive the trials. No one had ended up staying together afterwards. But Cade didn't let the odds sway his decision in entering. Thousands of people entered to participate in the show every season, but only 18 couples got chosen. Fate was in their favor. They had been chosen as contestants. That was all the proof he needed. Cade was certain that he and Callie had met for a reason.
Temptation Trials Rebellion Temptress's Prologue. Audiobook bonus scene. Written by B. Truly. Narrated by Des M. Astor. Sahara. Twiddling her thumbs, Sahara waited for her name to be called at the courthouse. Sahara Fenty, an old lady called from the hallway. Sahara walked towards her, holding her shoulders high, although it was a false confidence. She didn't know what to expect with filling out the Temptation Trials application. There was no turning back now. Besides, getting accepted as a contestant was her only way out. Reaching the woman, she looked a lot older up close. She wore huge Coke bottle glasses with a head full of gray hair and too many wrinkles to count. Sahara wondered why the lady wasn't retired. She had to be pushing 90. Hello, dear. My name is Mrs. Cobbledick. Sahara had to control her facial expression. She'd never heard of such a name. I'll be setting up your Temptation Trials application. But first, I have some standard questions. Follow me. Sahara nodded and then followed the lady down the hall. The woman must be in good health. The large hunch in her back didn't slow her down. She walked at a decent pace. Once they entered her office, the lady directed Sahara to sit across from her desk. I see you want to be a contestant on the show, to be a homewrecker, Mrs. Cobbledick asked. Sahara turned her nose up. I beg your pardon? The woman glanced at her computer screen. Well, it wouldn't be the first time you've caused problems in someone's home. Sahara's mouth fell open. Mrs. Cobbledick was trying to be asshole funny, calling her out. She cleared her throat. I want to enter the show to be a temptress.
It's the same thing. The regime would like to know why you're interested in participating in the show.
Sahara didn't answer, meeting the old lady's stare.
You'll have to answer these questions to move forward. How will you fare with the temptation application if you can't weather through these simple ones?
This woman was something else. Best to get her interrogation over with. I'm entering to be a temptress in order to get a second chance.
At love?
No, at life.
Do you not believe in love, Miss Fenty?
Well, I know that love isn't a fairy tale.
Mrs. Cobbledick smirked at her. Do you feel that people are wasting their time attempting to prove their love to the world?
To each their own. Who am I to tell someone not to fight for what they believe in?
You don't feel it's hopeless. So far, no one has beaten the odds of temptation.
Sahara's brow knitted. No one should be forced into an arranged marriage, so she could understand why couples wanted to try. Thankfully, Mrs. Cobbledick laid off the love scenarios and asked more standard questions.
Now that the verification part is over, we can continue with the temptation trials application. Follow me.
Sahara trailed behind her into a large room with several computers inside. None of them even looked up as they entered, concentrating on their task at hand. Sahara wondered if some of them were filling out the arranged marriage applications or the temptation ones. Sahara bit her lip while Mrs. Cobbledick set up the computer for her to get started. She gave her brief instructions while the system cued it was ready.
Make sure to answer every question thoroughly. Don't leave anything blank, especially Section 3, she instructed.
Will I get disqualified if I do?
That's a possibility.
Sahara wondered if these would be trick questions, like reverse psychology. Is there a right or wrong answer? She hoped for a hint.
There is no right or wrong answer. Just answer honestly.
Will they know if I'm being dishonest? Sahara pondered.
She didn't put anything past the regime.
Taking a deep breath, Sahara hit the button to begin the Temptation Trials application. Temptation Trials Preliminary. Registration for Season 6, Fall 2036. Section 1. Origin. Your first, middle, and last name. Sahara Monet Fenty. Date of birth? 7/1/2016. Age? 20. Height? 5 foot 6 inches. Weight? 139 pounds. Nationality? Please be specific about your ethnicity, including the country if your parents were born outside of the United States. Mother? Dominican/born in the Dominican Republic. Father? African American, born in Nashville, Tennessee. Region? Not applicable. Current profession and place employed? Not applicable. College or trade school? Not applicable. School major? Not applicable. What is your favorite color? Ruby. What is your favorite food? Chicken Alfredo. What is your favorite pastime? Crossword puzzles. What is your favorite genre? Crime mystery. Who is your all-time favorite author? James Patterson. Section 2. Traits. Answer yes or no below. Have you ever committed a felony? No. But Sahara had a misdemeanor on her record that was causing her more problems than one, the reason she applied to be a temptress in the first place. Good thing she could answer no to this question. She feared they would judge her poorly otherwise. Everyone else did, although it must be a trick question because this was the courthouse. They knew the scoop on her. Sahara's criminal charge wasn't a secret she could hide from the regime. Mrs. Cobbledick had alluded to the fact. Sighing, she continued. Do you smoke? No. Have you ever drunk alcohol? Yes. Have you ever done illegal drugs? No. Have you ever lied? Yes. Have you ever stolen? No. Do you like politics? Yes. Have you ever committed fornication? Yes. Sahara's eyes reached the heavens. Committed? Why were they acting like fornicating was a crime? After all, the regime loved to promote it on their government-sponsored show. Section 3. Personality patterns. Answer yes, no, or choose either or. Do you consider yourself bold or cautious? Bold. Do you consider yourself funny or serious? Serious. Do you consider yourself a planner or spontaneous? Planner. Do you consider yourself a leader or a follower? Leader. Do you believe that 21 is too young for marriage? Yes. What sin do you think is worse, stealing or fornication? Stealing. Why? Because you are taking something that doesn't belong to you. It's disrespectful and rude. What sin do you think is worse, lying or sloth? Lying. Why? Lying could cause problems like getting someone hurt or worse. If you had to commit adultery in order to save a loved one, would you? Yes. Why? Because it would be for someone I loved. Sahara wasn't sure if she believed in love regarding intimate relationships. But she believed in the non-commitment kind, friends and family. Do you think sexual intimacy brings two people closer together because of the mental bond you form or the physical pleasure? Physical bond. Why? Sex is pleasurable, so feelings are bound to happen if someone is giving you pleasure. If you had to kill a few people in order to save the world for the greater good, would you? Or would you risk the outcome by not killing anyone? I would kill a few. Why? Because it would be for the greater good, and that outweighs the risk. Have you ever had sexual intercourse? Yes. If yes, how many partners? 1. Do you think that you could love more than one person at a time? No. Do you believe that if someone is in a relationship, but they are having sexual fantasies about another person, is cheating? No. Why or why not? It's not physically cheating if it's only in your mind. Do you think kissing another person if you are in a relationship is cheating? Yes. Do you feel love conquers all, in the sense that you would do whatever is necessary to ensure that you and your companion are granted permission to marry? Hell, Sahara wasn't sold on true love or soulmate concepts, let alone believing that love could conquer all. The best answer for her was no. Would you consider having sexual intercourse with more than one person at the same time? You've got to be fucking kidding me. That's what Sahara really wanted to answer, only she knew better. She deleted her sarcastic comment and put no. The last question made Sahara's head spin. What the hell was up with all the questions about sex and sin? Did the regime want promiscuous people to ensure lustful sin on their show? Mrs. Cobbledick had warned her that Section 3 was the most important. The first 2 sections made sense. From what Sahara had heard, those inquiries were similar to the marriage applications. They were traits and characteristics to match you with a compatible person. Section 3 seemed like a twisted joke, but she was willing to endure whatever the regime had up their sleeves in order to succeed and get her life back on track. Sahara had answered their interrogation as best she could. She only hoped it was enough. Her life was in shambles. Getting accepted as a temptress on temptation trials was her only chance for a clean slate. The fate of her life was in their hands. Cat. Catalina wasn't hanging out with her friends on a Friday night like normal teenagers. Not that she had many, anyway. Over the past year, with her little brother's condition, Kat didn't socialize much. He had been her focus. Corey had finished his treatment, and she could only pray that he was out of the woods. Since Corey was finally feeling better, Kat was spending time with him. Their madre was working and wouldn't be home until late. Kat let Corey choose the movies they would watch while she put the popcorn in the microwave. The heavenly smell of butter filled the air. With everything that occurred after World War III, at least they still had buttered popcorn.
"That smells good, sis,"
Corey told Kat with a wide smile as she sat next to him on the sofa. He reached his hand into the bowl. Grabbing a large handful, he stuffed it into his mouth. Closing his eyes, Corey hummed in delight. "Tastes even better than it smells." Kat's lips spread across her face. It pleased her that he could enjoy popcorn and not worry about being sick afterward. Corey had lost so much weight. He was as thin as a beanpole. Kat ruffled her hand in his hair. "You're going to eat us out of house and home." Corey chuckled, knowing that she was only teasing. They started the movie. Corey had chosen an action-adventure with the main plot about fast race cars. A good-looking blonde cop was undercover, trying to take another buff, attractive man down. Kat couldn't take her eyes off the screen, checking out both men. The storyline was intriguing. Of course, the undercover cop started getting in too deep. The buff hunk's sister had a lot to do with it. Corey wasn't drooling over the men like Kat. He was into the fast, neat-looking cars and races. This movie series had been among the most popular back in the day, and getting DVDs for them was like pulling teeth. They had lucked out, getting a deal on the entire series for Corey's 13th birthday. He had been beyond psyched when he opened them. There was no more movie streaming. The new regime only aired the news, their government-sponsored television show, and sports. Unfortunately, only the elite got the privilege of getting the sports channels. Being middle class, Kat didn't know of anyone who had access to the sports channels. So, the only option for other entertainment was buying old movies or TV shows. All movies were watched on DVD, since no new movies had been made in almost 2 decades. The huge engine that used to be called Hollywood no longer existed. The nation had been rebuilding. But since the world dictator took the reins 9 years ago, he hadn't allowed much social engagement. Hell, going to parties or clubs was illegal. Kat thought that his strict mandates were to keep the nations in check, prevent the world from spiraling again. "This movie is so cool, Kat," Corey said animatedly. "Did you see how fast that car just went?" "Yeah, the blue smoke from the muffler was a nice effect." She wasn't going to admit that she was liking the movie more for the 2 hot male leads. "Do you think the cop will turn him in?" "Not sure. He's fallen in love with his sister, so that complicates things." The movie was definitely a thrill of a ride. After it was over, Corey asked if they could watch the second movie. "Just one more, and then bedtime." "Aw, I'm a teenager now, not a kid." "A teenager doesn't mean you're an adult," Kat giggled. By the time the next movie ended, it would be almost 11 p.m. Madre would be home from her late evening shift by then, and probably complain that Kat had let him stay up too late. Corey might be 13, but his body wasn't as strong as other 13-year-olds. He was still getting his strength back from the ordeal he'd gone through. At the start of the second movie, Corey was on the edge of his seat. As the movie progressed, Corey slouched in his seat. Kat noticed that he looked paler than usual. "You feeling okay, Pooh Bear?" Kat's brow knitted. Corey's forehead wrinkled. "I hate it when you call me that, Kat." Her lips curled upward but didn't reach her eyes. Kat knew Corey secretly didn't mind the nickname she'd been calling him since he was a toddler. Corey turned on the sofa, lying his head down. "Just getting a little sleepy." Kat's stomach twirled in knots. "You sure that's all?" "Yeah," Corey answered quickly. Kat decided to leave it alone, although a chill ran through her body. As the movie continued, Corey fidgeted, shifting from one position to another, like he couldn't get comfortable. By the time the movie was over, beads of sweat were on Corey's forehead. His face was scrunched up, and he'd grown paler. "Corey, what's wrong?" Kat's voice rose several octaves. "Just tired. I think I'm going to hit the sack." Kat stood, with him lingering close by. The way his body swayed when he walked was making her stomach turn cartwheels. Taking his next step, Corey stumbled, catching himself before he fell. Kat rushed over to him. "Tell me what's wrong now! Don't try to pretend that you're fine." Kat had seen him like this before, and her fear had taken the front seat. Corey glanced at her with unfocused eyes. "I don't feel too well, Kat." His eyes rolled to the back of his head. Then he collapsed. Kat screamed, barely catching him before he hit the ground. Corey had passed out cold. Kat paced, waiting for the doctor to give them a report. Kat had called Madre after Corey passed out. They rushed him to the emergency room, and from there, the hospital he'd been treated at. They were running tests on him to see what had happened. Doom tumbled in Kat's stomach, fearing the worst. "Please, God, let Corey be okay," Kat prayed. Her brother had already been through too much, and she thought he'd beaten the odds. It seemed like eons before Corey's oncologist came to give them an update. Madre and Kat hurried over to him. "Dr. Bentley, please tell us how my son is doing," Madre pleaded. "Corey is feeling better for now, Mrs. Diaz." "So why did he pass out? I thought he was in the clear." Madre was desperate for answers. Dr. Bentley's brow furrowed. "I hope that also. But unfortunately, Corey has had a relapse." "What does that mean exactly?" Kat knew what the doctor meant, but she wanted him to spell it out. Dr. Bentley cleared his throat. "I'm sorry to inform you that Corey is no longer in remission. His cancer is back." Kat had been moping all week about the prognosis her little brother was given. The cancer had returned, and it was worse than before. The kind Corey had was aggressive. Dr. Bentley told them that his only hope was the chemo trial medications. Unfortunately, hell would have to freeze over before they could afford it. Insurance wouldn't cover trial meds, so Kat couldn't see a light at the end of the tunnel. Without the trial medication that had been proven to cure Corey's type of cancer, the outcome was inevitable. Without them, the doctor had given Corey a year tops. Down in the dumps, one of Kat's close friends, Aurora, had convinced her to come over her house. If Kat stayed home, she would cry like she'd been doing all week. Aurora lived in the same neighborhood, and they'd been friends since middle school. Kat filled Aurora in on Corey's prognosis. With Aurora's persistence, she'd continue to pry, so Kat decided to tell her and get it over with. "I'm so sorry, Catalina." Kat knew Aurora was worried because she rarely called her by her full name. "Why won't the insurance cover the trial meds if they have great results?" Kat shrugged. "Insurance will do anything to get out of paying for whatever they can. There must be something else you can do." "It's hopeless, Aurora, unless you have any idea of how I can come up with thousands upon thousands of dollars. Somehow, I don't think standing on the street corner in a pretty dress will cut it." Kat was being funny. It was either vent sarcastically or scream. "I couldn't see you being a prostitute, Kat. Not to mention that's a felony with hard time." Aurora chose to play along, concerned that Kat was close to breaking down. Aurora scratched her temple in thought. What? The word trials made me think of something that I read. Hold on a moment. Aurora told Kat, logging onto her computer. After a moment she said, "Yeah, I remembered correctly." "Are you gonna put me out of my misery?" Kat blew out her breath. "You should enter the temptation trials." "As in, the government-sponsored reality show?" "The one and only." "Why on earth would I do that?" "I'm not dating anyone. I need to prove to the world that our love can defeat the ultimate temptation." The new regime's most vital law was arranged marriages at the age of 21. Every citizen worldwide had to fill out a marriage application at the courthouse close to their 21st birthday. The government matched you with your partner for life. More than likely, it will be someone that you have never met before. The kicker was that divorce was not allowed. Ever. So, regarding the person the regime chose, you were stuck with them until death do you part. Kat, nor anyone else she knew, understood the regime's ridiculous notions to control love. What does doing so prove? Kat pondered. There was no way around it. No exceptions. Just a fact of life that everyone had no choice but to accept. It's the reason Kat and her high school sweetheart broke it off after they graduated. Why continue dating? They would both be married off when they turned 21. And Kat was certain that it wouldn't be to each other. Better to cut the ties than make it worse in the long run. The regime never let couples marry who were together beforehand. Any couple's only hope was to enter as a contestant on their government-sponsored reality show. If you were chosen, then the couple must prove to the world that their love was real. Unfortunately, it never worked in the couple's favor. The show was rigged for failure. The government had proved time and time again that the human flesh was too weak. Temptation won every time, proving the regime knew best who your soulmate should be. Aurora saw the confusion in Kat's face and clarified, not as a candidate fighting for love, but as a temptress. Kat felt herself frowning. Mind explaining why I'd want to enter to be a temptress? Seems like that's only asking for trouble. There's enough going on in my life than to cause problems for other people. Because being a temptress could be the answer to your prayers. Kat's ears were burning to know how being a homewrecker was the answer. Please enlighten me? It says here that if you get accepted as a temptress, then you get a lump sum of money for participating. Kat's eyebrows rose, going over to the computer to read the details for herself. Her heart expanded after reading it. This was a fine example of never say never, because Kat never imagined that she would be considering entering that crazy reality show. She didn't have any other options. Like the oncologist had told them, Corey's fate was inevitable. It wasn't the question of if her brother would die without the trial meds. It was when. If it's within my power to give Corey a fighting chance, then shouldn't I do whatever needs to be done? Wondered Kat. There was nothing to debate over. It didn't matter what the public thought about her being a temptress. If Kat could save her brother's life, then she would. Damn the consequences. Catalina was waiting on tenterhooks to see if she'd get accepted as a contestant on the Temptation Trials, the government-sponsored reality show. She filled out an application a couple weeks ago. Now, all she could do was wait. She bided her time by hanging out with her friends. A knock on the door startled Kat from her reverie. Glancing out the peephole, she saw a postman, and her heart skipped a beat. If they were getting a personal delivery, it could only mean one thing. Your acceptance to the Temptation Trials came by personal mail, that the contestant had to sign. If you were accepted, then you would receive detailed information afterwards. Hesitantly, she opened the door. Hello, I'm looking for Miss Catalina Laya Diaz, the postman greeted. I'm her, Kat answered no louder than a whisper. Oh good, I won't have to come back, he said with a tight-lipped grin. I have this for you. Just sign here. He showed Kat where to sign. After she did, he handed her the envelope, then bid her goodbye. The fancy writing on the envelope read, The Temptation Trials. There was no return address. Kat stood in the doorway, unable to move. Gathering her courage, she finally closed the door. This document would reveal Corey's fate, whether he would get another chance at life. The thought of the answer being between two words, accepted or denied, was becoming too much. Kat could hear her heart beating so loudly, she thought it would pop out of her chest. Unable to take the anxiety anymore, she ripped the envelope open, unfolding it. Her eyes scanned over the document frantically. Dear Miss Catalina Laya Diaz, the regime is happy to inform you that you've been accepted as a temptress for the Temptation Trials Season 6, Fall of 2036. Congratulations! You will receive an email within the next couple of days with further instructions. Kat read the message twice in disbelief. When the reality kicked in that there was now a light at the end of the tunnel, she squealed. Her madre rushed into the living room. "Cat, is everything all right?" Her madre got wind of the envelope in Cat's hand. "Is that letter from Temptation?" Slowly, Cat nodded, tears forming in her eyes. "Yes, madre. I got accepted." Madre gasped, hurrying over to Cat to see the letter for herself. After she read it, she embraced Cat tightly. "Thank you so much for doing this, mija. This is the answer that we've been hoping for. All I have to do is see it through, and no matter the outcome, Corey will get a fighting chance." Hope bubbled inside her. Cat didn't want to get too far ahead of herself, but entering temptation trials could be Corey's salvation.